Good morning, folks, and thank you for being with us this morning. We have a couple things going on today, public hearing and also work sessions. So the first thing on our agenda we'll do is have some introductions. I'll start all the way down to my right with Representative Sargent, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, friends. My name is Holly Sargent, and I represent District 147, which is the town of York.
Good morning, Kim Hagan, and I represent District 36, which is Hamden and Newburgh.
Good morning, Sheila Lyman, District 76, Livermore Falls, J, and most of Livermore.
Hello, Teresa Peirce. I represent Senate District 25, which is Falmouth, Cumberland, North Yarmouth, Gray, the majority of Yarmouth, and Long Island.
I'm Joe Rafferty. I represent Senate District 34 down in York County.
Hello, I'm Kelly Murphy. I represent House District 125, which is part of Scarborough.
Good morning, Jan Dodge, House District 39, Belfast, Northport, and Belmont. Welcome to education.
Good morning. My name is Michael Brennan, and I represent District 115, which is part of Portland.
Nathan Carlo from Buxton. Good morning.
Morning, Christina Mitchell, Long Island, Shibig Island, and Cumberland.
Thank you, committee members. As I said, we have work sessions and public hearing. This first, we will have a public hearing and just, some basic ground rules. If you do, we'll start with the sponsor shortly, but those of you that are going to speak in support, in opposition, or neither for nor against, we'll go in that order. And I'll remind everyone, please, when you do come to the podium, that should be a sign-up sheet. Please be sure that you do sign on to that so that we have a record of those that were with us this morning. So our first piece of legislation is sponsored by Representative Sargent, and we will start the public hearing on LD. I believe I remember it as 2000. I had wrong number. 2098. I thought it was 99 for some reason. Good morning, Representative, and thanks for presenting this.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Let me give you those. Sorry, there we go. Good morning, Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and fellow distinguished members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is Holly Sargent, and I represent District 147. And I am pleased to call your attention and present LD 2098, an act to update certain higher education statutes. This bill allows the Maine DOE to collect initial application fees for out-of-state higher education institutions applying for degree granting authorization or program approval in Maine. LD 2098 amends current statute to give the Higher Education Administration Fund the authority to receive the fees. This bill also allows the State Board of Education to forego a duplicate institutional review for certification of various programs if that institution to be reviewed has already passed a Maine review in the last 5 years. Maine DOE will present testimony, etc. The other thing, a couple of things that I want to point out to you. The issue of collecting initial application fees for out-of-state higher education institutions. This is one of those situations where Maine has been out of step with what basically most states do in terms of collecting these kinds of fees. So that part of the bill is sort of just getting us in line and, being able to, in a very, again, routine kind of way, accept and be able to handle these fees. The other thing that I just want to point out to you is that we're going to hear this morning from Senator Grochowski, who will share with us an issue that has to do with the College of the Atlantic and an issue that is very, very important in the sense of impact on their students that basically has been brought to her attention. And she, working with Senator Peirce and others, have basically brought it to also to my attention and the DOE's to be able to try to address. What I'm just saying is you're going to hear that this morning. That situation, and because of the topics that this particular bill covers, we could address in the future with an amendment to this bill. We also have another possible path of basically taking care and introducing a private and special bill that would just have to do with the College of the Atlantic. Right now, we're in conversations. Michael Perry from the DOE is also working with us. And so I just wanted to let you know that I'm aware of this. And as the sponsor, I will do whatever is needed so that we can take care of those students. You will be hearing more of that. So I will not go into it in any more detail. But if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to attempt to answer them.
Thank you, Representative. Any questions from the committee? Yes, Representative Hagan.
Thank you. And maybe it's something you can answer. I can wait for somebody, but
Okay.
I really worked at trying to understand this, and I just need to have someone explain to me how we're not in line, like how has it been working and how will it fix it?
I will let Michael or Dr. Seer tell you that because, they will undoubtedly be able to make it more straightforward than I would.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Not hearing any. Thank you very much, Representative Sargent. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak in support of the legislation? Thank you for being with us. Thank you.
He's waiting for you to tell us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I am.
Go ahead.
Good. Okay. Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Education and Cultural Affairs. My name is Michael Perry. I serve as Director of Higher Education and Educator Support Services at the Department of Education. I'm here today representing the Maine Department of Education, speaking in support of LD 2098, an act to update certain higher education statutes. This bill adds initial application fees for certain higher education institutions applying for degree granting authorization or program approval in Maine. Maine is one of a minority of states that does not collect fees of any kind from applicant institutions, which has the effect of weakening consumer protections against potentially low quality or predatory institutions in Maine. The bill also gives the Higher Education Administration Fund the authority to receive the fees collected. The process for degree granting authorization and program approval are both spelled out in 05071 Rule Chapter 149, Procedures for Obtaining Authorization for Institutions of Higher Education to Confer Academic Degrees or to Offer Degree Courses, Programs in the state of Maine. The process is time and labor intensive and relies primarily on work capacity from the Department of Education and on the volunteer efforts of a review committee composed of professionals from institutions of higher education at existing Maine institutions. The department coordinates the process and delivers the review committee's findings to the State Board of Education for a final vote. The state has seen an increase in applications for institutional approvals in Maine during the past 3 years, and a lack of department capacity and review committee volunteers has created a potential bottleneck for institutions seeking state approval. LD 2098 may generate a modest savings to the Maine Department of Education and only in years when a new institution applies for initial applications. The following breakdown of revenues is estimate based on other similar sized states and cross-referenced with the labor required for these types of reviews. An out-of-state institution with physical presence would be $1,000. An in-state school that is brand new and has physical presence in the state would be $500. An out-of-state institution that does not participate in the state authorization reciprocity agreement and does not have physical presence in Maine would be $250. LD 2098 would also allow the state Board of Education to avoid duplicative institutional reviews in specific circumstances. Under the current rule, Chapter 149, an institution looking to move from temporary program-based approval in Maine to full degree granting authorization would need to undergo a new state review with a new review committee report using the exact same standards and evidence. LD 2098 would allow the state board to forgo that duplicative review at their own discretion if an institution has already passed a state review in the last 5 years. For these reasons, the Maine Department of Education is in support of LD 2098 and act to update certain higher education statutes. I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have, and I'll be available for work sessions on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Any questions at this time from the committee? Senator Pearce.
So the fee, basically that would just be one time to whatever institution. It's not an ongoing.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
it doesn't, you wouldn't have to redo the fee if you had another brick and mortar.
Yes, that's our intention
might be
right
the same
now.
one.
Yeah, there are states that take two bites of the apple and you both have to pay when you apply and then pay a yearly licensing fee. And we're not interested in that. We're interested in the application fee only.
Is there a rough number of the 3 different types of groups here that have done this in the past that we didn't collect fees on?
Oh, I mean, dozens. In the last year, there have been 11 different sorts of institutional review requests through the department for that would have applied. These fees would have applied to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Representative Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming. Question.
Mhm.
So you state that the goal of the fees is to protect against potentially low quality or predatory institutions. So my question is, in the fee setup, the group that has the smallest fee is one that's not present in the state and not here at all.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm just wondering, is that of more concern if we don't know them at all?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Understand. I think I understand the question. Yeah. For an out-of-state school without physical presence, that is the lowest amount of labor that that the department would need to put in to conduct an appropriate review. So that's why the fees are structured as they are. I think when we talk about predatory institutions coming to the state, the largest concern would be an institution that is shopping for state approvals. There has been an uptick in this. And really, the bread and butter for these institutions are finding a state that will accept them to have a physical footprint. Because then when you have a physical footprint in the state, you can start offering online programs more easily to other states if you've been approved in your home state. We have had at least one example of an institution. I would not, want to mischaracterize them, but I can tell you that anecdotally, their application materials had 4 different states mentioned in the application, and it became pretty clear that they had been shopping for state authorization. And one thought from the department is a reason Maine might look like a good state to shop to is because we don't charge an application fee. And so might as well pop in an application and see if Maine will accept you. And you can set up a fiscal footprint and then offer it nationwide from Maine. So we're hoping that with this fee will reduce the number of institutions that become interested in Maine. So far, there hasn't been a deluge of that, fortunately, but we have had that. And it is something that nationally a lot of states are seeing now with the greater ability to offer online programs. More institutions want a physical footprint somewhere so that they can expand their programs nationally. Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions? Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Senator Rafferty, and Ms. Perry, thank you for being here. In reading the bill, I don't see anything that would take away the authority of the legislature to make the final decision about what is approved and not approved. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. And the word may is important here, as it always is on the state board's end of it as well. It says that the state board may avoid a duplicative review if they like. If they are concerned with an institution moving from program approval to full degree granting authorization and they want their own review, they can have that institution go through another review. So they may forego it, and even if they forego it, it will need a full legislative bill to be passed. So both of those safeguards are still in place.
And just relative to that, can you give me an example of where you've had a situation where you may, quote, forego the review and make a recommendation directly to the state board and the legislature?
Sure, yeah. There's an institution that has gone through 2.5 program approvals in Maine, introducing new majors. And the program approval sort of track in Rule Chapter 149. It's more designed for sort of temporary one-off relationships in a state, and it is a 4-year approval, and then it needs to be renewed again. And so an institution that started on the program approval track and then now has a physical footprint in Maine and wants to become a full degree granting authorization member in Maine, a sort of full member of higher ed in Maine, they cannot use their recent program approvals to count towards degree granting approvals right now. The standards in Rule Chapter 149 are precisely the same. And so to go from one track to another, really the state board has already weighed in and said, we think consumer protection wise, this institution is not a threat to Maine students. But to get to the legislature, which is really the step for that full degree granting authorization, right now in regulation, they would need to submit a new report that had exactly the same evidence, speaking to the same exact standards. There would need to be a different title at the top of the cover page. And then the department would have to create a new review committee who will look at this, ask them the same questions and interviews that they've just answered. And we would need to go through that sort of just to satisfy the regulatory need without a real sense that anything new would come of that review, because it would be identical to the one that had just been undertaken.
And Senator Rafferty, one last quick question. You mentioned the fact there's been, quote, an increased uptick in the number of applications you received. I also know that you've had some difficulty pulling together groups of people to do the review and in a timely way. Does there need to be more staffing? Does there need to be some rethinking in DOE about resources needed in order to address the additional applications?
I don't think you'll ever get an office director here who would say, I don't need another position. So yes, that would improve things. And really the fees that would go into the Higher Education Administrative Fund, those from the beginning have been thought of a pool of money that could increase the department's capacity to run these reviews. And, you know, any expenditure from that fund would need to be approved by the commissioner's office and on up. But, you know, just the thought I would have right now is whether that's building capacity through staffing or whether that is building our ability to appropriately collect willing volunteers because we're able to offer a stipend. There's just things we can do with those funds that would let us ease that bottleneck for the reviews that we are processing.
Representative Dodge. Representative Hagan had hers up. I missed it earlier.
Thank you. While we're on the fee conversation, so I'm reading that the fees will be determined by the commissioner. And so how will the commissioner determine these fees? And then I'd like to know what the breakdown, like what the fee will cover, and are these fees going to be capped?
Sure, yeah. These would be one-time fees for the first time that the institution applies for the type of approval they're applying for. The commissioner would set these fees based on what would be reasonable, often pinning it to comparative to other states that have a similar profile to Maine. That a cross-state review is how we came up with the example fees that I shared in my testimony that you have before you. And so these are comparative amounts of money that other states are already requiring for these sorts of reviews. And it would be, like I said, one-time application fee, and the fund would let us have more capacity to see to these reviews more quickly.
Not to add staff and things like that.
It could potentially add new staff. It could potentially be used for stipends for review committee members. I don't want to be out over my skis because I would need to have approval for whatever this fund would be doing through the commissioner's office and so on.
So would these be capped or would they be ever growing or moving?
Oh, I see what you're saying. My expectation is that they would be pinned to an appropriate level for what other states are doing. And if the overall costs of higher ed are going up, if inflation's going up, that would be the only reason I would see the fees moving. The goal from the beginning is that these would be reasonable and in line with norms from other states.
Thank you.
Representative Dodge, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here. So do you folks feel that this process is satisfactory to protect Maine students in the general overarching view, please?
Yeah, these reviews are certainly necessary, and the standards for the review are set by the State Board of Education. I do know that they've been discussing reviewing these standards to see if they need an update. The importance of these reviews is really it fulfills the state's portion of what's called the regulatory triad in higher education. So one side of that triangle is the accreditor, and they are the body that looks into the academic programming of an institution and make sure that that is up to snuff and that a degree is of the value you'd expect. The other side of the triangle is the federal government, and so things like your various titles and overview of institutions accepting student loan funds, that sort of thing is done by the federal U.S. Education Department. And then state approval, that side of the triangle is a consumer protection side. And so the standards that are currently in Rule Chapter 149 look at things like, does this institution have adequate library resources that we could expect a student to get all of the resources they would need? Does this institution have the financial solvency that we could be sure as a state that Maine students won't be giving their tuition money and then the institution's bankrupt? And so I think they're really important. I know that they were written a while ago, and so whether the standards need to be updated, I think is a really rich topic of conversation like we have with the State Board of Education, where it's their rule set. But yeah, the department sees this as a really necessary process to protect Maine consumers.
Quick follow-up.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have we had any oopsies you can share in, say, the last 5 or 6 years?
Could I get a clearer definition of oopsie?
Of course. Have we had any situations where an institution has been offering services to students here in the state, and we have found them to be unsavory, dishonest, inappropriately prepared to grant degrees, to do what they say they do? Kids who graduate aren't qualified for whatever.
Yeah.
Is that enough of a definition?
That's
of
a good
oopsie,
definition of
please?
oopsie. Yeah. No silver bullet oopsies have occurred. I think of recent years, the larger concern is actually with previously or in the recent past, there was no oversight of non-degree proprietary institutions in Maine. Those rules have been instituted now, and the DOE does license proprietary schools. That is another new bucket of reviews that this same team has to do. And so it indirectly affects this process because it creates more work that further stresses the capacity of the team. But it's an important piece that Maine recently added. So I don't think that bill was inspired by any specific whoopsies, but it was inspired by the fact that consumer protection angle wasn't existing in Maine regulations previously, and it's been instituted recently.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Representative Lyman, Representative Murphy, and then Representative Hagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How many other states do a similar program? What is the number?
So every state has a process for state approvals of higher eds. I could for a work session have a more definitive number of how many charge versus don't charge, but there is a state approval process of some kind in every state. It's an important part of oversight for higher ed.
My question is specifically to charging fees.
Fees, okay, yeah.
And I'd be interested in seeing like what the protocols, the practices are and what this state is proposing
Yeah.
to have for a structure protocol. How does it compare to what other states are doing? So the number that for work session, the number that do use fees and any information as far as what procedural things are in place and how does this department intend to be similar or different to that.
Great. That's,
Thank you.
yeah, we're happy to do that for work session.
So, thank you, Representative Murphy.
Thank you. So this clearly says for the initial application. So if a school applies and it's denied for whatever reason, if they came back a year or 2 years later and applied again, would they also have to pay the fee?
Our vision for this is that they could come back and try again, that we wouldn't.
Wouldn't charge it again?
Yeah, exactly. There's sort of a cool down period in regulation that if you fail a state board vote, you need to wait a little bit before you pop in another application. But that would be the restriction on them, would be time.
Okay, thanks.
And Representative Hagan.
Thank you. I'm back on the fees.
Yeah.
Just a couple of questions, if you don't mind. So let's say, if the fees change the amount, does it require legislative approval to change those fees?
I don't believe so under this language, but that would be a question that I would want to ask my colleagues in policy. Yeah.
Just curious about that.
Yeah, sure.
And like, will there be any expected annual reporting on how these fees are being used?
Not as of right now. There's no mandatory report, but there is currently in 20A section 10017, there are guardrails for how the department can use these funds.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Hearing none. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else in the room that would like to speak in support of the legislation? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to the legislation? Anyone that would like to speak neither for nor against? Sounds like a drill.
That was real.
That breakfast burrito is.
I know. It's like- Oh, dear.
Oh, boy.
Good morning, Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and distinguished members of the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee. My name is Nicole Grahowski, and I am honored to represent 22 communities of Senate District 7. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on LD 2098, an act to update certain higher education statutes. Thank you to Representative Sargent for teeing up what I'm about to share with you all, and also to the department for working closely with the College of the Atlantic on the issue that I will service now. I am here on behalf of the College of the Atlantic, COA, which is located in my district in Bar Harbor, to discuss an amendment to its governing higher education law. COA's degree granting authority derives from Private and Special Law 1973, Chapter 29, as seen here. You'll note in that Section 1 that the law limits COA to conferring BA degrees in human ecology. COA will soon be accepting environmental studies students transferring from Sterling College in Vermont, which is closing. In order to grant these students degrees, as approved by COA's accrediting body, this law needs to be amended to strike the words "in human ecology." With my testimony, I have included info from COA, which provides more context for the requested change. I hope you'll review it. It is my understanding that this change would be consistent with other newer state law that authorizes institutions to confer degrees at a specific credential level rather than by subject matter. Furthermore, the Maine Department of Education is familiar with this issue and has recommended that COA seek a law change via the legislature to broaden COA's degree granting authority. Thus, I am here today to request that your committee consider amending COA's private and special law to strike the words "in human ecology." LD 2098 is the most subject matter appropriate existing legislative vehicle that I have found for making this change. I have communicated with both your analyst, Elena Roig, and the reviser of statutes, Ed Charbonneau, to confirm that it is possible to amend a private and special law in a bill that also amends the Maine revised statutes. While it is atypical, there is nothing that prevents this committee from doing so. I am, as Representative Sargent mentioned, also pursuing the possibility of introducing an after deadline bill, but your committee may find it more expedient to make this change. which is supported by both of the entities implicated in it, COA and the Department of Education, in this bill that's in front of you now. Thank you for your time and consideration of my request. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Anyone have any questions? Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Senator Rafferty. Senator, good to see you today. Again, just looking at this for the first time, does the amendment that you're proposing just prescribe relief for this discrete situation, or does it affect any other situation going forward?
Well, the amendment would be specific to the College of the Atlantic. And by striking the words in human ecology, they would be allowed to grant any Bachelor of Arts degree that they were accredited to do. So there is another body, which is described in COA's testimony, which is responsible for determining what kinds of degrees they can confer. But it would allow them to grant the environmental studies degree for these Sterling College students. Furthermore, if 5 years from now or 10 years from now, they wanted to add a third degree, if as long as they were accredited, they would be able to do that without having to go back to the legislature to amend the private special law again. And their accreditors are the New England Commission of Higher Education.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Representative Hagan.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
Good
So
morning.
I'm not seeing the connection between this and the hearing for 2098.
Understood. So the title of LD 209 is an act to update certain higher education statutes, and I read that relatively broadly. There, we could expand what certain ones were potentially amending. I wanted to bring it in front of this committee. Again, I will try to look at getting a second session bill, but I know how fast things are moving and how much work we all have. So if the committee finds that it's, agreeable to making this pretty concise, I think relatively easy to understand change in this bill to just move it along, I will have no objection to that. Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you, Senator.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to come in with now something completely different.
Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak neither for nor against? Again, it's because we've heard all the testimony we're going to hear, so I close the public hearing on LD 2098 at this time. Thank you very much. Yeah, sure. We will, we're actually ahead of schedule, which I don't know that that's ever happened. So we will take just a brief break so that, because we are scheduled to start the next governmental evaluation at 11, we'll hold until 11. So
Do the work sessions after.
and after we do that, right, the last thing we'll work with is our work sessions for the day. So thank you. I don't know that we've ever done this, but. Welcome back. And our next session, we have the pleasure of hosting the folks from Maine Maritime Academy to give us an update in terms of what's going on within their program and system. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Rafferty.
Turn on your microphone. There we go.
Thank you, Senator Rafferty, Representative Murphy, and the members of the committee. I'd like to thank you all for having us back. To my right is our provost, Dr. Jennifer Waters. She joined us after 25 years at the Naval Academy and 5 years at New York Maritime Academy. And now she's seen the light and come to the good place. So it's great to have her on board. Her background in naval architecture and engineering shores up our mainstream, producing marine engineering, naval architecture, power engineers, and such. And I have just back here, not so quietly, is Janet Waldron, our VP of Financial Affairs, and 8 million other jobs that Janet does here. So since we were last here, we've updated our strategic plan. So our vision is to be the premier maritime college, advancing Maine's economy and strengthening the nation's transportation, logistics, and maritime workforce through leadership, innovation, and hands-on education. So we've just completed for our 10-year plan, which is being measured as we sit. Our mission is to deliver a thorough education grounded in rigorous academics, experiential learning, professional preparation for success, and leadership within maritime engineering and related fields. Our curriculum empowers leadership, self-discipline, and curiosity while providing the graduates the skills, ethics, and tools needed to succeed in today's maritime global world and technical professions. So I guess today is really a good chance to look back at where we've gone as a school. We've seen a great deal of change in our nation over the last 10 years or so. We have responded. We are dealing with new programming. We have a nuclear program that's come on with an associate's degree. There's been a need on the maritime side and in the generation industry from data farms and things like that. Our partnerships with DOT and the Navy are proceeding. We have the Navy nuclear programs coming up, both from the Navy side and from Portsmouth Naval Shipyard we were talking about a little bit earlier. Our partnership with Bath Iron Works is going exceedingly well. We leased a 50,000 square foot building in Brunswick, and we're now producing, we're aiming for about 200 folks to be in there in September into our apprentice program. And we moved Region 10 in a high school fed by Brunswick, Mount Ararat, and Freeport. So we've got about 60 high school students embedded with us now, and we're aiming to try and get to a couple hundred by fall. So what that does is we're trying to build a nucleus down there around our workforce program of getting those students in the middle schools and high schools early. Maine Maritime hadn't done that traditionally, but in the changing times, we need to do things differently than we've done them before. Embedding ourselves with the high school gives them those skill sets, and whether it's welding or I consider the blue collar trades and the white collar trades. White collar trades are IT, HR, design work. People that may not want to go work out in the yard, but can certainly contribute from a design standpoint, a build standpoint, or leadership or project management. All those different aspects are key to shipbuilding and ship repair and submarine repair. We've run some projects for Portsmouth over the last few years, putting workers there. Here we are a few years later, and I think we talked about them a year ago. We were here. There was a couple from up our way that took the course. One was working at the Irving, I think one was working at the Dollar Store, and they both passed the program, one in welding and one in machine tool, and took the jobs at Portsmouth. And they went from making whether $17, $18, $20 an hour to a joint income of $110,000, and they moved down to that region. And that's the stuff that changes lives. And I'll go back to the original conversation with Portsmouth. Is they said, we'd like to have one of your graduates when they get kicked, or one of your people as a freshman then to get kicked out. I'm like, well, we could probably do a little bit better than that. We could give them freshman year in a bottle. And so we designed a course with Portsmouth around their needs. We matched the exact type of welders that they have, the welding machines, the air filtration systems, the grinding tools, matched bit for bit. So when they left our place, They went to the same things in the yard. Bath Iron Works has the same equipment, CNC machines. We taught them electrical. We taught them inside and outside machining. So it was a great example showing the country what we can do for that piece. We learned a few things along the way too. We learned something about the immersive experience versus going to school during the daytime is fine if you're going to a couple hours a day, but you're not getting immersed. You're not going to learn French or English as another language doing that way. The immersive experience created a better worker. They were more passionate about the tools of their trade, and it's really been a great benefit to Portsmouth. And we're trying to do more of that with Bath Iron Works as well. We've been tasked by the DOT, DOD, and every other group in DC as we're now called the American Maritime Center of Excellence, named Maritime Academy. The 5 of the 6 maritime academies were designated that as the leaders of their coast area. So we're the leader of that section for DOT. So we're representing when things come out from a federal standpoint, we're kind of the point in that realm now, which is kind of nice. Obviously, they recognize we're kind of we're joking the car ride over here. We're good at a really narrow area of things, being maritime, but it's particularly of need now. We don't produce lawyers or nurses or anything like that. We're sole focus. So we've been asked to ramp up our programs. What can you do to double? What can you do to triple or quadruple? So working with Dr. Waters and Janet, we take a look at the school holistically. We're a fairly small school, budget wise. We're in the $50 million range, and but we do a lot with that amount of money, and we produce a great return on investment for everybody who hires our graduates, whether they be associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, licensed programs, or other. So that's a lot about what's going on down there. We've told the feds, we've got grant money and we'll make that self-sustaining by 27, 28 is our goal. And that will basically double our population from a full-time and part-time standpoint. So we should be having about 2,000 people as students by then. Traditionally we run around the 800 to 1,000, depending on the cycle of the maritime industry and our stuff. So we're trying to be a better asset for the state and a better asset for the country. So we're doing a lot more to, I think, produce on the national scale, and Maine is recognized as being the best, and we try and keep that there. A recent poll gave us the number 4 ranking in the world at Maine Maritime, which you can believe polls as far as you can throw them, but it was nice to be noticed from our little state. We're also the only ones with a shipyard producing surface combatants and repairing submarines. So out of all that, it's pretty cool for a little state like ours. And our programs are seen as the templates. So if this Brunswick takes off the way we're looking at it, California would then copy Texas, New York, and Massachusetts. So we're being seen as using our template for training and producing workforce. So that's something we can all be proud of, and we thank the Maine legislature for their support and everything that they've done for us. So getting back to the kind of the mothership, so to speak, in Castine, the need has never been higher for the maritime industry. We're producing more deck and engine folks. It's taken us a little while to get back after COVID, but our ranks are back up there. We're about 65% in the unlimited licenses, but our limited license programs, the small vessel programs and vessel operations technology are filling in with those places like Portland tugboats and Belfast and the tugs and barges along the coast too. Those people are critical to our infrastructure. They're not heralded as quite as much, but they're highly sought after. We've seen the industry come in and give them 3 or 4 job offers, even more so than our unlicensed graduate or unlimited licensed grads. So it's great to see those programs flourishing as well. We're expanding our industry partnerships and career pathways, sometimes to our detriment. If each graduate's getting 3 or 4 job offers, they're having a fight over which way they go. But the ones that go out shipping, the nice thing for them is they'll go out and work out in the industry out of the state, but then they continue to live here and stay here and bring their out-of-state money back, which is always popular. So a lot of good things going on that way. Our folks are career-ready graduates when they expect a different graduate from Maine Maritime Academy. We had our Admiral's dinner in Fort Lauderdale last year, and the CEO of Fairwater was talking. He employs about 150 of our graduates, and he said, "I know one thing from Maine Maritime: they show up job ready. They know what the job is. They're not entitled, and they're ready to work." And he's like, "They'd expect nothing but from us." So it's good to hear that. And our students in the room took notice of that too, and then sent that back to their other student body. So that's a big thing of what we're doing. And big, obviously, this committee knows, the big struggle for us obviously has been maintaining the affordability for our students. We've been here a few times. We're trying to work up our state allotment a little bit. We still have LD 681 that's sitting out on the appropriations table at some point. That's critical to our growth. And we'll be back probably to talk about that later on. The really interesting thing we've got going on here in the next 4 or 5 weeks is you guys will all be getting an invite. We have a brand new training ship arriving in Portland, probably between the 15th and 20th of March. And we're going to have a grand celebration in Portland on the 30th. 30th. I had to make sure I get the right date. So that's a historic day for Maine and a historic date for the maritime industry. A purpose-built training ship that it can house 600 students. Our last one could house 250. We partnered with Texas A&M this summer to fill the ship. We have right now we're estimating 575 to 585 students on that ship. And as we show the federal government what an asset it is in really delivering their return on investment too, of filling that ship and getting the right training going on. That'll be the third time in our history we've partnered with Texas A&M, the first time being 1964, which our former training ship Captain Wade told us about when he was a senior. Texas came out, and then we went with them last year. And we had to brainwash our students not to say yeehaw or gig 'em and a bunch of other things. So they'll be given Maine slogans this year, and they'll be taught what Dunkin' Donuts looks like. So we'll do our best to educate the Texans. So we had a great bit of lessons learned with the Texans and how they do things and how we do things. They have high numbers of deck students. We have high numbers of engineers students. So it actually really equated to a nice ship situation. Balancing out the training needs, and our faculty and staff on board the ship and in the school in general are spectacular. To have people coming from the industry and bringing their years of experience to come and teach the students, that's what I consider the secret sauce. We've got 40 alumni on the ranks as on the payroll, either working on the ship or working in the faculty, and that's just. Whether it's power industry or maritime industry, that's irreplaceable. And we can't be happier with that. I'd like to, since we're on the subject of education, and that's where my limit ends, I'd like to introduce Dr. Waters to talk about all things academic.
All things academic.
All things.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having us here. This is my first time here, and as President Johnson just shared, I've had a long career in academia. I've been a professor since a long time ago. I taught at the Naval Academy and then ended up in different administrative roles. And as he also mentioned, I most recently was at SUNY Maritime, New York Maritime, in the provost role. But what brought me to Maine is the opportunity here and the reputation here. The students here, as President Johnson mentioned, really are in a different class of individuals, in that you can tell a Maine Maritime graduate through many different aspects in how they approach and complete tasks, work with others, approach different challenges. And I knew for many years I wanted to come to Maine Maritime, and I'm just thrilled to be here. And we are also, as President Johnson mentioned, at a pivotal point in our history at Maine Maritime with the arrival of the new training ship. That will be truly transformational. I saw that previously at my prior institution, how it helped to re-energize, but I think given, the nature of our students, our community, and just everything about Maine Maritime, I think it will change us to be truly leaders in the maritime world. As I think may have already been mentioned, we are one of only 6 state maritime academies, and we are unique in many different dimensions. And our clarity of mission is undeniable. And our mission resonates with me, and I have been working with the faculty since I arrived to help hone that, make us stronger, make us move forward in the best way as we have these opportunities going forward. We have a number of initiatives, both on the main campus that we have, as well as developing workforce avenues, as well as pipeline opportunities, because Maine is a state where there's so much talent here, but yet trying to give opportunity to individuals to be able to grow and develop and achieve basically the best life that they can is almost untapped. There are conventional academic institutions in Maine. However, I believe ours clearly has demonstrated that we bring people even further than many of the other academic institutions that are here. So I've been working to undergo an academic program review, looking objectively about our strengths and maybe some areas where we need to work, and be honest with ourselves about what is maybe even not working, but strengthen what is working. As President Johnson mentioned, nuclear engineering is one of the areas where we have faculty and resources that are second to none, that can help enable us to be leaders in this area, especially with nuclear engineering technology. And I am so excited. Our faculty are just phenomenal in putting together a program. We've talked with our board of trustees multiple times about where we want to go. And I think that will differentiate us from not only the other state maritime academies, but also many of the other academic institutions across the country, to really give opportunity to people to do great things and support our country. And I can never stop myself from saying that the maritime world does make the world go round. As I mentioned, I've been in academia for a long time. And even when I was teaching 30 years ago, I would ask my students to look around themselves and try to find something in the room that wasn't either shipped here by ship, built by something shipped here by ship, or created with material that was shipped here by ship. And periodically a student would say, oh, well, here's something or other, or even here's a banana or something. And I'm like, okay, fruit is pretty good. But I said, bananas, you have to do your homework. Most bananas don't come here, don't come from from where you are sitting. They're usually shipped here. So our economic security, our national security, our way of life is really tied to the academic programs that we offer at Maine Maritime, whether it's directly involved with people operating vessels, or people who are working with the logistics and the business side of maritime transport. And I am so proud to be at Maine Maritime and so proud to be here at this point, especially in our history. And maybe this is a little bit too much. You gave me the mic, so sorry. But I'm really working on a number of different elements to help make sure that Maine Maritime and what we do is seen and heard and appreciated and valued going forward. So with your help, I'm really looking forward to many, many years to help help go forward and help our state as well as our country.
Thank you. And that's, I think that's the tone of what we're doing as a school. We're here for the state, we're here for the country, producing the best workers, whether here on shore or out at sea. We've done that for years. You walk into a Hannaford, there's probably somebody operating a physical plant out there that's really quiet, and or chill boxes or something like that. They're all over where our graduates end up. But you know, they're out in the infrastructure, CMP, and all the other places. I think the big things we're looking for as the outcome for our students, keeping our school affordable is obviously a big key, but looking for the outcomes of a state, for us to remain competitive. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I had a meeting with Bath Iron Works leadership 2 or 3 weeks ago. He said, what looks good to you? I said, what looks good to me? If in 5 years, I said, take all the numbers in Brunswick and Castine aside. If you can produce a ship in a year and we can fix a submarine in 6 months, then we've met our goal. I'll be able to walk down the street and feel pretty good about that. That's a legacy. If we're just taking in students for the 10th, taking in students and saying we got 10,000 students, it doesn't matter. If you get 1,000 of the right ones, they're going to make a difference out there. And they're going to be leaders. They're going to take things, they're going to do things differently. We teach them to innovate, and that's what we do. I think the state can be proud of our school, and we're proud to be from Maine as well. And I think the things that we're doing for the country on the whole are being noticed. We're seen as the leader in terms of workforce amongst the colleges and the DC circles, and they go to us with questions every day. And because we're the only ones, 2 years ago, stuck our neck out on the line and built this workforce back when nobody was using that word. And we're like, oof, good thing we did that. So I think the advantage we have going forward is we have the right people in place. We have the right infrastructure. We need to obviously, like I said, boost our funding a little bit, but we're also seeking help from the federal government to boost their outcomes. This introduction of the ship is going to be a complete game changer for the state. We've seen enrollment increases already year over year, but this has turned into a turbo booster. Our unlimited license programs are seeing very big growth, even amongst the DEC students, which typically we have 20 to 30 a year. The last 2 classes have been 45. So we're seeing increase in those students as well. And it's nice because it balances us off. We're known for our engineers. We're probably, what do you figure, 2/3 engineers amongst everything else. And that's our reputation as our engineers, but the other graduates are really, really good. There's just less of them. And they make a good impact wherever they go. I'd say in closing, I want to thank everybody on this committee for what they've done for us over the years, and seeing what we can do to drive Maine forward and drive the country forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone on the committee that has any questions at this time? Representative Sargent?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for this information. This is wonderful. There are two things that among so many others, but that I wanted to perhaps get you to expand upon. Number one is sort of as you're looking forward in terms of increasing the workforce type initiatives that you've done, what does that horizon look like? But then the second question really is, if you are the number of students you're talking about to go from where we are now, even just to doubling it, right, to 2,000, maybe even quadrupling, whatever. I'd love to know more about how, what you're doing and how we can be helpful in this education committee in making certain that the percentage of students from Maine in that now expanded school, expanded number, to try to do everything we can to really, optimize the opportunity for Maine kids to be getting into the Maritime Academy and being able to take advantage of these jobs.
Well, the key obviously for us is affordability. And we're the most expensive maritime school there is. We're worth it. We're discounting salaries to an unprecedented amount. $4 million of our current budget is called waivers or discounting. That's coming out of our operating budget. It's not coming from our endowment and other things. We're giving away $2 to $3 million from our endowment each year to cheapen the cost of education for the students. That's a big key. But what we're also doing is designing a worker that isn't going to get laid off. Just because BIW reports would need 200 designers today, 2 years from now, they won't. They're going to need 200 project managers. We're trying to develop a worker that can go through the flow, and then the next cycle, DDX5 coming along, those are now project managers and project leaders, the ones that float to the top. So building a resilient worker means we're going to need less of them, to me, because if you're cycling them out, that's a really tough change on a business to hire and fire like that. If we can get BIW's retention rates and Portsmouth's retention rates up, and we feel we can do that. The other number I probably should have shared was our apprentice program, which is now 35 years old with BIW. BIW just ran the numbers last month. We have a 94% retention rate. 10 years later, after they graduate that program, they're still with BIW. That is an unbelievable return on investment for a worker. And those folks have now matriculated up to the vice president levels of Bath Iron Works. So we figured out the secret sauce there over the years. And it's the instruction, it's the hands-on experiential learning that we're good at, and getting the right people teaching, but instilling them with those values, that leadership ability. I mean, UMaine called us last year and said, "Hey, we want to be Maine's public college." We're like, well, ours considered us Maine's leadership college, so that's fine with me. And you could hear a pin drop. That was pretty good. But that's the big thing. We're making leaders and folks like that are going to go in and make a difference. So,
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Very good. Awesome.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So when did you say that the ship with the has 600?
March 30th.
March 30th.
It's coming in. March 30th is going to be our grand celebration. So you'll get an invite. We're just coming up the river in Delaware towards Philadelphia from our sea trials. So we wanted to make sure we get those done and get the ship buttoned up first. Yeah.
Well,
So
we appreciate that.
we like to have
Thank you very
contingent.
much.
Our world revolves around contingencies and plan Bs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Think we do, yes. Yeah. So
Here's the photo. Yeah. Thank you so much.
at this time, we'll have to vote to accept the report. Okay, so. Okay, Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking for the specific wording, so I'm hoping that Karen, Ms. Neto from OPLA will help me. I would like to make the motion that we accept the report from Maine Maritime Academy and find that they are operating under their appropriate statutory responsibilities.
It's perfect.
Motion's been made and seconded by, was that Representative Sargent?
Yes.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of accepting the report, raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Work sessions, yes. So we will just continue to work. We have some upcoming work sessions. Okay, so, okay, yeah, she'll be along.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for your help.
Yes. Yeah, we got wicked, well, they've been on the cups. Yeah. AF, which is an oldie, but it is. Yeah.
Yeah. We can. We do have, as I mentioned moments ago, we do have a couple of work sessions. And we'll go in the order they're listed. 2114 will be followed by 2109, and we do have our analyst fortunately with us. Good morning, Elena. Thanks for helping us out.
You said 2114 first.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what's listed.
Great. So Maura is coming around with a blue bill analysis on LD 2114. So this is an act regarding public preschool programs serving children who are 3 years of age. So essentially, the bill makes quite a number of changes to statutes throughout Title 20A to provide that a school administrative unit may, but is not required to offer public preschool programming to not just 4-year-olds, but 3-year-olds also if they choose to. So currently you'll find that a lot of the language in statute, when it specifies an age, it typically specifies 4. So a lot of these changes are just inserting the words 3 or so that it says 3 or 4 years of age. I've kind of broken down, I know these types of bills can be kind of hard to follow because it is all these statutes that are like sort of loosely related to one another. So I've sort of broken it down in the first section of what each section does. It's kind of long. There are like, I think 15 sections to this bill. So I'm not going to read them to you. But that is sort of like the overarching concept here is that it's making these adjustments to allow for this expansion of public preschool offerings. I will remind the committee that at the public hearing, it came up that in section 13 of the bill, I believe this was the intent, is that, so there are these two sections about whether a school offers public preschool programming to a 3-year-old who is not identified as a child with a disability, that they can enroll if that 3-year-old group is offered at that public preschool program. My understanding of the amendment was, or the amendment that came up, the proposed amendment was that that section just be clarified to just to say that I sort of actually just want to pull up this testimony to make sure I'm not getting it wrong. But I believe the intent was just to clarify that a 3-year-old may enroll if the public preschool program is open to 3-year-olds who are not identified as having a disability. I hope I didn't get that backwards. But since this is a department bill, I think any questions that come up, I'm going to probably defer on, but that is pretty much all I have for you.
Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Hagan, then Representative Lyman, and did I see your hand go up? Representative Murphy.
Oh, thank you. So I have a few questions just to get my head wrapped back around this, to make sure I'm understanding it properly. So there was a lot of discrepancy, I remember from my notes, that about the startup funding. So the startup funding is provided for the 3-year-olds who are identified, or any public school, preschool program within a school or offsite that accepts 3-year-olds.
I'm going to have to sort of scan the bill to go back and tell you that for certain, but it's possible that you might get a quicker answer from somebody from the department.
We would welcome the department. Dr. Seer.
And with 5 minutes to spare, it's still good morning. I'm Dr. Laura Seer from the Department of Education. There was some confusion. You are 100% correct, Representative Hagan. However, there is no startup funding included in this bill. What the bill alludes to is if startup funding becomes available, whether that be through federal or state sources, then we would be able to apply for and then use that funding to provide services to 3-year-olds as well as 4-year-olds. So it just, the provision of startup services is already in statute, and I can refer you to 4271 in Title 20A, which has to do with the startup funding for public preschool programs. So that's already in statute. We just want to make sure that if it becomes available, we can also use it for 3-year-olds.
Okay. And so I guess my concern, if there's a preschool program that's accepting these identified 3-year-olds, what I understand this bill to say is that non-identified 3-year-olds may participate as well.
At the discretion of the SAU.
Correct. So who pays for that?
The SAU would elect, if they open up their program to general education 3-year-olds, would elect to pay that cost.
Do you think, I mean, I'm just thinking that the wealthier districts could afford that, but I'm not seeing it's equitable in some of the districts who may not be able to afford that.
I appreciate the concern, and we share that concern, honestly. But however, one of the benefits of this program is it's allowing us to collect information about the need for 3-year-old programming. And right now, we don't have a good sense of how many of these 3-year-old students, whether they have IEPs or are in general education, how many of them need this sort of service. And so this phased-in approach allows us to pull that information together.
Okay, I have 2 more if that's okay. Thank you. So could this bill, if it passes, could it be, is it a mandate or could it be interpreted as a mandate?
I don't think it could be interpreted as a mandate, but I am not your analyst. I would defer to Ms. Roig about that. However, it does simply open the door to permission.
Okay. And my last one is, you know, being a former special ed teacher myself, I'm concerned about the least restrictive environment. And so, and I'm concerned with, I'm trying to wrap my head around if there's an existing pre-K program that developmentally 3-year-olds would have different needs than 4-year-olds. Would that put a big possible burden on the schools for new staff and it could be more of a financial burden, I would think.
That's certainly a risk. And I'm grateful for your concern for these students who have been identified. The last thing we want is to segregate students with IEPs away from their typically developing peers. And what my colleagues upstairs have shared with me is that it's not uncommon in this kind of mixed delivery system for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds to be in a preschool classroom together. I have never had the pleasure or chaos of teaching preschool. So I can't speak from personal experience, but my understanding is it's not uncommon. And so the intent through the mixed delivery system is not to segregate students who have been diagnosed, certainly not, but rather to allow an opportunity for general education 3-year-olds to be included.
So how does this work? Like, because I believe this is for offsite as well.
Correct.
So how does that work, for instance, in a Head Start program?
In a Head Start program, actually, I have that information if you could bear with me. So all of Maine's 10 Head Start programs have at least one partnership with an SAU. And so what that translates into is a total of 33 SAU partnerships throughout Maine that are supporting 72 pre-K classrooms. And so Head Start is one of the best examples. They have the experience, they are equipped with the infrastructure and the supports for these private partnerships for students to go off site. So it's one of the best places for us to start gathering this information about pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds.
Promise this is my last one. I promise. Have you heard from any Head Starts Do they feel that this would be successful, adding the 3-year-olds with special needs? Do they have any concerns due to developmentally, these students do have, at 3, have a few different needs than a 4-year-old?
So Head Starts are required to have a certain percentage. I believe it's 10% of their students who have received IEPs. And so I might need to defer to some more specifics from my colleagues upstairs, but I know that this is a model that they are very well equipped to manage.
Thank you. Representative Lyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So many questions, but I think I'm just going to stick to my understanding for this piece of this bill is that there is not in statute the ability for our SAUs to include 3-year-olds in their program.
General education 3-year-olds, you are correct.
Okay, so it raises the question with me in regards to Head Start, that's not the SAU. So I'm just trying to get to what this bill is about. And when we first heard it, it was my understanding that simply put, we don't have in statute to include 3-year-olds in an SAU.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Murphy.
Thank you. I think you answered the question, but just for clarity, there's no mandate in this at all. There's no fiscal note, and it's very typical for, especially in mixed delivery settings, for 3 and 4-year-olds to be grouped in the same classroom anyway. So they wouldn't, create an inclusive environment, there would be no need to then enroll 3-year-olds. So districts never would have to spend the money if whoever they're partnering with, or even in their own pre-K settings in school buildings, as long as the 3 and 4-year-olds are together, if there's typically developing 4-year-olds, that would count as an inclusive setting for the identified 3-year-olds.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
All right. Representative Lyman.
Thank you. And I appreciate that, but I feel the need to, because this is work session, just to say that I don't think that point completely settles comfortably with me, because the reality is, if this language is put into statute, moving forward in the future, there could be huge potential fiscal requirements to address the need. We don't know the numbers of children that might involve coming into the public school systems and the impact that would have on staff or physical building. And so I just offer that too, that I don't think it's black and white, that it'll be 3 and 4-year-olds in one, or we don't know what the numbers will be. And I just think it's important for us to consider those thoughts as well as we look at what this bill might be setting up. And I can't help but think about I compare it to when we took the feeding of all our state's children, and what an important and significant statement that is. And now we're hearing, not even 2 years into the process, of what the needs are now with kitchens and materials, and it ballooned into much bigger fiscal responsibilities. And I can't help but say I have to have my thoughts thinking about the bigger picture too. So thank you.
I want to thank you, Representative Lyman, because that is one of the things we're trying to do. We're trying to be incredibly deliberate about gathering information about the number of typically developing 3-year-olds that an SAU catchment area might have, so that when we get to the point of braiding these services together, we're not caught off guard. So thank you.
Other questions? You made a promise moments ago. I thought that covered this legislation, not just
That's a
that.
very important question.
All right, I'm
Thank
sure it is.
As I stated before, I'm concerned about the equity. So can you how do I want to ask this? How many, like, what is available? Let's say a student of an identifies 3-year-old lives in an area where there is no access. How would that student get access?
That student within that SAU region, that SAU region would be developing partnerships. That is part of the plan for the mixed delivery model, so that SAUs who may not have the capacity to enroll 3-year-olds can do so and provide those services with their partner childcares in the area. Did that?
Yeah, so I mean,
Okay.
and so that's, I'm just thinking fiscally, I mean, could put a big burden on schools, like for transportation and things like that. So that's just my concern. And we talked about, I know Senator Libby asked about some of the testing. Who is testing CDS is testing these students to determine that they're special needs?
Child Find is a separate process outside of this bill, so this doesn't impact any of that legislation.
But it's those students that would be coming to school that have been identified.
Yes.
So how are they being identified? Like what tools are being used and who is doing that identification?
I do not have that information at my fingertips because it was outside of this particular legislation, but I can bring that to you before a report out if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Hey, Representative Murphy?
Thank you. So in the case of an SAU not having capacity, either space or staffing or whatever, in those cases, you know, when it's in a mixed delivery setting, they would be more reliant on the CDS hubs. Would that be?
That is one option, yes.
So those are already in effect or in creation or because of the transfer of FAPE?
Yes.
So that could be the hubs could provide services, whether it's in a childcare facility or in-home or wherever, right? That would be.
That's correct.
So 3-year-olds are not even still under this, 3-year-olds that are identified still don't have to go to a public pre-K setting.
That is also correct.
Okay. And one other thing to just clarify is that there's no fiscal note involved with this. And at any point, if 3-year-olds were all typically developing 3-year-olds were going to go to public pre-K, that would be a separate funding, separate thing altogether. These language changes wouldn't automatically, like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, create a funding responsibility for the 3-year-olds. That would be in addition to whatever's listed here.
That is correct. This language change neither gives the promise of a subsidizable general education 3-year-old, nor requires an SAU to enroll a general education 3-year-old or any 3-year-old. It is the special education 3-year-olds that are subsidizable, but this bill doesn't change any of that language.
All right. Thank you.
Other, Representative Lyman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Lewis.
Isn't it fair to, like, I use the analogy of the free lunch or free food program, it's not just lunch. Isn't it realistic to think that, I understand this bill does not include that, but this bill would set into statute the possibility and the potential for moving forward fiscal notes to appear because of needs that will be within the public school systems. Staffing as well as physical space and could involve other screening. I mean, there's a huge breadth of, potential needs.
I'm reluctant to say that it could, because none of this is a mandate. And so there would be no requirement for changes to infrastructure, changes to staffing or any of that.
No.
This is for SAUs that elect
Yes.
to enroll 3-year-olds and believe that they have the capacity to do so.
And I understand that. I understand it doesn't matter who's going to say they have the responsibility, if it's a local decision or if it was a state mandate, which I'm hearing it's not. The reality is there's going to be fiscal needs moving forward because of the inclusion of 3-year-olds in the public school.
that could be true.
Thank you.
Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, two-part question. Along those same lines, if a district elects to educate typically developing 3-year-olds, would that not then be under the EPS formula as we expand the age range rather than a specific separate funding mechanism? That's question number one. And question number two, as we are tracking numbers and saying how many 3-year-olds might be around and how many are not typically developing and child find, all of these things that we have mentioned, I am interested in how those numbers are going to be tracked and reported, please. Thank you.
Just making a couple of notes so I don't miss any parts of your question. And so Representative Dodge, what I'd like to do is take your questions in reverse order. The annual pre-K report, which I don't believe has been delivered yet, will have these pieces of information as well as the CDS transition report. And so the expectation is those two reports will provide you with the information that you'll need to determine if, coming back to your first question about the EPS formula, to determine if new legislation is required in order to encompass those 3-year-olds, general education 3-year-olds into the EPS formula. That is a decision in front of a future legislature and certainly well outside of my expertise.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We will move from 2114 to 2109. An act to define public education and to clarify that a private school receiving approval for public tuition must be located in the state.
So Maura is coming around with a blue bill analysis for LD 2109. There are sort of two main parts to this bill. One is that it defines the term public education and then clarifies one section where that term is used based on this new definition. And it also provides that a private school that is approved for the receipt of public funds for tuition purposes must be located in the state. So currently in law, there are provisions that provide that if a student lives in an SAU that doesn't operate, for example, a high school, that the home SAU tuitions that student to another school outside of the SAU. And there are instances where that students' parents might elect to have them go to a private school, and private schools that are approved for receiving those tuition dollars are held to certain standards that are set in statute, which I've attached for you. So this bill is essentially adding to that list of approval requirements for the receipt of these public tuition dollars that the school must be located in the state. So just a couple things I want to kind of flag for you as you consider this bill. So first, with regards to the phrase public education, that term does not currently have a definition. And as you can imagine, the phrase public education is used very many times throughout Title 20A. I am unable to check all of those to make sure that, this inserting a new definition for an undefined term that appears a lot, it sort of presents this odd challenge that it is very challenging to make sure that that definition fits with every single instance in which this phrase appears. In my reading, the definition that's provided, it seems fairly airtight. I'm not sure, it begs the question, like, what else would we mean when we say public education? But I am unable to guarantee you that this would not create some kind of unintended consequence or conflict with the way this term is currently used in statute. I would also remind you that at the public hearing, which I think is now a couple weeks ago, it came up that there are, I think, 2 students that are currently being tuitioned to private schools out of state. And it was discussed that potentially adding some language to essentially allow those currently tuitioned students to complete their education so that their education is not disrupted by if you choose to pass this bill. And sort of similarly, this last point, I'm not 100% certain how the approval process works and whether it is like renewed in any way, but if it's not renewed and or if that renewal process is like, you know, they're like approved for a certain number of years, I think one question to think about is whether you would want to add language that basically says, you know, if you move forward with this bill, that says that those schools that currently have that approval, that their approval is rescinded, to sort of avoid a situation where these currently approved private schools are sort of grandfathered in to this new requirement where they would retain that approval going forward. So just something to consider. And that's all I have for you on this one.
Any questions? Representative Hagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm reviewing my notes and there were a couple of things that I'm hoping Dr. Sear can come up and there was a request. It says the money following the student's state allocation, but could be local share. Dr. Sear said she's not sure. We'll bring that information in work session. And then she stated that she would bring responses to the Maine Policy Institute's written testimony who are in opposition. I'm hoping that got done. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome back.
And now it's good afternoon. Laura Sear, Department of Education. Representative Hagan, I'm sorry, could you repeat your first question for me?
Oh, the first one had a note that about the money following the student. Is it state allocation and local what is the money that's following the student out to the school?
It is the state and local allocation. That is
Both.
correct. Yes.
Okay. And then the second one was someone must have brought up the Maine Policy Institute's written testimony who are in opposition.
Yes, I had a chance to review that. I appreciate Representative Bagshaw bringing that to our attention. First, I would, I guess, refute the idea that LD 2109 restricts parent choice. What it does is it doesn't tie taxpayer dollars to an out-of-state option. It keeps taxpayer dollars in the state of Maine, which I think is not the same as restricting parent choice. Parents are still more than welcome to send their students to an out-of-state private school. They would just have to pay that tuition out of pocket. I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up?
If I do, but not if you're done with that, I'm just writing down what you said.
Sure. I guess I would also refer if the committee has also read the Maine Policy Institute's testimony. They make a couple of legal citations that concerns me because I'm not sure they're entirely appropriate to lay over this bill. And so we certainly don't intend to undermine students' right to quality education and to travel. And so the first case that the Policy Institute cites is the 1969 Shapiro case. This is a case that's widely used in consideration of higher education residency and tuition costs. And so that it just doesn't seem to properly apply to what we're trying to do here in Maine. We're not suggesting that a student needs to gain residency in order to receive this. We're suggesting that taxpayer dollars are used to pay for public education in Maine and for the approved private schools that have gone through the approval process. So I'm not sure that that case is properly used for this example. And the second case is the 1973 Klein case. This is also a higher education residency issue, and in fact had to do with married and unmarried students. And so I'm not clear on how these would apply to this case where we're not intending to restrict any student travel. Students are more than welcome to attend with their parent and guardian permission any school across the country or world that they see fit. We're only intending to make sure that Maine taxpayers know what their money is purchasing. And we can't ensure that if the taxpayer dollars are going out of state. That's all.
Right, just a follow-up, please. So, well, and I hear what you're saying and thank you for that. I guess from what I remember, it was very few students that this applies to. And this has been going on for, I know the New Hampshire school has been, it's like over 100 years that kids have had that option. So I'm just wondering why all of a sudden today we need that change. And is it more of, I mean, if we were talking about a student that lives right on the border and has chosen to go to a school that's 20 miles away versus if we say you cannot do that on the state's, this is changing, then you have to travel 100 miles. I mean, I would have concern with that. So if you could please speak about the choice that these students have made and why it's been going on for so many years, why now the change is needed.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if it's okay, I'll take your questions in reverse order as well. So related to the students who may live on the border of New Hampshire, that's an excellent point, and those students may have different choices ahead of them. And so to that point, we have the Maine New Hampshire Interstate School Compact. This is entitled 20A. It's chapter 121 and provides for a set of processes for Maine and New Hampshire school districts to come together, make an agreement, essentially an MOU that will serve that particular student or students. Now, I wondered as I was doing this research if we have any of those school districts that have come to an agreement across Maine and New Hampshire, and we don't. And in fact, I spoke with our school finance director, and because of the way the state and local allocation would need to be divided between the two states, she would have had a lot of information about this very strange situation. She said in her experience, this has never happened. And so we have the provision available. This statute change does not seek to change that. In fact, we appreciate that that is there and the concern for those students. And now I've forgotten your second question.
What is it's been going on for.
You turn your mic on.
Over 100 years. Why? Your mic. It's been going on, sorry, 100 years. Why, like today, do we need to make this change?
Well, it's important that we have received an increasing number of applications from out-of-state schools seeking to gain approval for taxpayer dollars. And so it seemed important at this juncture to put some guardrails around that so that Maine taxpayer dollars, which I think most Maine taxpayers assume that there is some accountability to where their dollars are spent, so that we can understand that the schools that are receiving taxpayer dollars are beholden to the laws of the state of Maine, and that taxpayers understand what those students will be learning and have a say in that through the Maine legislative process.
But that seems like kind of a backwards thing, that so these schools are applying, but you're not having an influx of students trying to get out of the state with state money.
Not to my knowledge, no.
So I'm really, maybe the parameters need to be more strict for those schools versus not allowing this tradition to continue that's been helpful to a very small population of students.
We can't apply stricter parameters to out-of-state private schools. They are not beholden to the state of Maine laws. And so we have no way of ensuring that they meet our expectations or our taxpayers' expectations.
But don't you have to say that it's approved that that school is okay for Maine students to go to?
Within a certain set of criteria, yes, but they are not also beholden to the state of Maine laws. And so that's a critical piece.
Thank you.
Representative Wyman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just find that this is work session, so I find the need to, or it's a little uncomfortable, so I respectfully push back that when we keep referring to taxpayer dollars, our taxpayers are our parents and our other community members. So I guess I look at that through a different lens, that, you know, this is impacting few students, and if those parents' taxpayer dollars, if they want a choice to elect to do something else, then I just think it's important. It's uncomfortable for me to think of it's state money. It's the people in our communities, the parents themselves, who their money is being used for the education. And so I just want to make that a statement, that I think I'm seeing that in a different lens than the way you may be offering that. And I clearly understand there's other folks paying taxes other than our parents, but the parents certainly are as well. Thank you.
They are, and if I could just clear up a misconception, the amount of public state tuition that these out-of-state institutions receive is approximately $15,000 per student. And while, yes, those Maine taxpayers do get to choose where their child goes to school, I would caution you against the belief that that pays for the tuition at that school. The schools that are currently approved charge between $65,000 and $83,000 per year for tuition. That includes room and board. But these parents that are electing to send their students, their children to these schools are paying the vast majority of that tuition out of pocket. So I would consider the $15,000 from the state tuition to be a rather small amount in comparison. So I don't want there to be any misconception that the state is paying the entire amount, and therefore these parents would be disadvantaged by not having that taxpayer amount sent out of state.
And just to follow up, please. That wasn't my misconception. What I felt was a misconception was the idea that the taxpayer dollars belongs to just the state. And for me, it's individuals, parents, anybody who's paying it's their money that is the tax dollars that the state is benefiting from. So I just think that's an important thing for us to keep in mind.
Representative Sargent?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Steer, can you please share with us the names of the 4 private institutions in New Hampshire or outside of the state that are currently approved? And could you please let me know whether or not Vermont and or Massachusetts, for example, has a mechanism for, schools, same kind of districts that don't have high schools. Are they allowing for tax dollars from Vermont or from Massachusetts to go to these private schools in New Hampshire?
Absolutely. The names of the schools that are approved to receive state tuition are Phillips Exeter Academy, Dana Hall School, and High Mowing School. These are boarding schools. There's another school, Proctor Academy, that has been provisionally approved to receive. And so if they go ahead and enroll a student and receive full approval, they will receive state tuition dollars. In terms of out of state policy, the only other state that we could find that mirrors Maine's experience, in that there are sometimes areas that do not operate a high school, is Vermont. And in fact, in 2025, they passed Act number 73, which in addition to a laundry list of other policy items, did require public schools and approved independent schools, sorry, nope, that's not it. Requires approved independent schools, so any private schools that have been approved, to meet certain criteria in order to be eligible to receive public tuition, which includes being located in a non-operating district or union. And so Vermont is requiring these independent schools to be located within the state of Vermont in order to receive public tuition as of last year.
Representative Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the schools that you just listed are the ones that we have approved to send kids to?
3 that have been approved to receive public tuition and 1 that is provisionally approved.
And
They aren't all necessarily enrolling.
correct, but they could, and we would, and unlike living close to the border of New Hampshire, these are private independent schools in Massachusetts.
I believe New Hampshire and Massachusetts.
New Hampshire,
Yep.
Massachusetts, but not, I mean,
I don't believe we
I'm
share
just
a border
interested
with
by that
Massachusetts. I
information
think you
for
are
a
correct.
variety of reasons, and it's not for, yeah, never mind. Thank you. I won't comment.
Representative Murphy and Representative Hagan.
Thank you. I think I asked this at the public hearing, but I don't see it on my notes, that this exclusion wouldn't apply to students with IEPs where their education can't be provided for them in state.
This exclusion does not apply to special purpose private schools that are out of state.
Okay, thank you.
And Representative Hagan.
Thank you. So I'm sorry, I probably asked this before, but so right now the school in New Hampshire is the only place that we have students that are using our money. Do we have any enrolled in any of the other schools?
We have 2 students attending Phillips Exeter and 1 student attending Proctor Academy.
So we're
in New Hampshire.
yes, so 3 students, and historically have, like, over the last 10 years, is that number, has it dropped from a huge number, or is it?
I did not include that in my research, but I can get that back to you before report out.
Okay.
Any other questions? Representative, would you shut your mic off, please? I am not seeing any hands up or hearing any questions. Thank you very much. Well said. Okay, so we will end the work session. We'll take a let's return at 1 o'clock. Okay, we'll reconvene then. We'll reconvene. Thank you, folks, and we are working 21, I'm sorry, I didn't sign that, 2114 at this time, so. Um, So I would entertain a motion on 2114 at this time.
Mr.
please.
Chair, I move that LD 2114 ought to pass as amended with the amendment with words added in section 13 after line 2 on page 4 and have not been identified as a student with disabilities. And this is language that was suggested by,
It was in several places.
in several testimonies we heard. Please, thank you.
Thank you. So the motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Yes, Representative Hagan.
Thank you. What was the amendment again?
The amendment will be at the top of page 4. Right after it says who are 3 years of age currently. And it would be added that these students have not been identified as students, a student with a disability. Any other questions? Further discussion? Yes.
I would just add that Representative Bagshaw said she was going to be on to vote.
Okay, thank you for that reminder. We'll make sure, I'll hold until we're sure that she's with us.
Unless something changed from 5 minutes ago.
It's not currently on the Zoom.
Okay, she can call them in.
Okay, and if she does pop up, just give me a heads up. All right. Thank you. So we didn't have any further discussion, so the motion we're voting on currently related to LD 2114 would be ought to pass as amended. All those in favor of an ought to pass as amended motion, raise your hand. And those opposed, make sure we all hold them up, please. Have a final count.
It was 7-3, and the minority report
Ought not to pass.
ought not to pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeez.
Here it is. I don't know, it must be. Maybe they're trying to find us some heat. Let's move on to 2109. So we're moving into LD 2109. And I would entertain a motion. Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move LD 2109 ought to pass as amended, with the amendment being a tinkering with the language to indicate that the students who are currently enrolled be exempted, allowed to finish their program they are currently enrolled in. However, no new students would be accepted into the program. Is that a sufficient motion?
I'm gonna. Our
Ms.
analyst was
Roig-
writing. I was gonna
Ms.
let her
Roig
finish
of
first. So
Opala, please.
is that clear?
Yes, I,
The-
I think I understand what you're saying, if I could just read it back to you. So basically, you would like that additional language that clarifies that students that are currently enrolled and being tuitioned to a school outside of the state are allowed to finish their education there. However, no new students can be accepted to be tuitioned out to a school out of state. And was there an, you may not have said this, but I'm just asking to clarify. Did you intend for something to happen with the approval of these schools, that the approval is rescinded, or just leave that be?
It would be rescinded.
I-
Anyone else is allowed to go there.
I believe it would be rescinded because we were talking about the revoked upon enactment be part of the tinkering or not? So I think maybe we were unclear or unsure about how best statutorily to have this happen.
Okay, so just my understanding is that once this is enacted, you want the kids who are currently enrolled to finish. But then beyond that, nobody's approval is like sort of grandfathered in, that there are no new students
Correct.
at all.
That is
being-
correct.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I need a second, please.
Second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Representative Sargent?
Yes, I just wanted to make certain that we didn't need to be spelling out in this bill that this excludes students that have IEPs or whatever and that require special placement that may indeed be out of the state. This wouldn't preclude that, right?
We'll clarify. Representative Murphy?
I think we wouldn't need to because that would already be covered under IDEA, the law that pertains to disabilities, students with disabilities. So I don't think we would need to outline it. I just want to be sure that we weren't changing something inadvertently by approving this. So I think we're okay because the IEP would cover that specifically for those students.
Any further discussion? Okay, so then, I would, let's, move that we vote on LD 2109. The motion was ought to pass as amended. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed?
And what was the minority report? Not to pass.
That
Thank you.
The final number?
7-3.
Thank you. And Representative Bagshaw is still,
Yeah, I sent her a text. You'd have to call them in.
okay, thank you very much for doing that. All right, so I believe
Nope,
that.
one more thing.
Sorry.
318 is on your desk.
318 is on my desk.
I wondered why that
Oh.
was hanging with us.
Yeah,
The committee bill, just the language review for the committee bills.
I see. Be interesting to how long it is.
So while Maura is bringing around a bill draft for you, just an unrelated note, we do have your budget binders available. You may recall
Thank
that
you.
you are scheduled for a joint public hearing in AFA this Friday. I think that's the 20th at 10 a.m. Should last most of the day, I anticipate. If you choose to take your binder with you, like in years past, please either bring it back here before Friday morning or bring it with you to AFA on Friday because we don't really make extras of these. So just an FYI.
You will bring them over.
Yes, if you leave them in this room, they will be brought over to AFA. Yes, yeah. Yep. Okay, so a week ago, you voted to initiate a committee bill based on 4 recommendations from MEPRI in their LD 318 EPS study. Before you is a draft of a bill that does all those things. So you had directed me to work with MEPRI on developing this language, and they were involved. They provided some of this language to me. So just so you know, this has been reviewed by MEPRI, and we're all on the same page that it covers the things that you asked for at that meeting last week. Just a note on process here. So in a typical, if this were a typical like committee amendment, often I would bring back a like truly final copy that's been like processed by the revisor's office. It has the revisor's stamp on it. It's been like formatted appropriately. It's, you know, they do all those things. Because there's a little bit of time sensitivity here with getting the bill printed. It has to go on the calendars. It has to get referred back to committee before you can schedule it for a public hearing. Because of that, unless you see something substantively like glaringly wrong with this draft, I think this will be the only time that you review it before it comes back to you for a hearing and work sessions. And again, you can always amend it at the work session. No big deal. So I don't know if you would like me to walk you through the bill, if you'd like to just take some time to peruse. It's a little long. So.
Yes, Senator Purse.
Just to clarify, so what would happen is we would then send this out to our interested party list and schedule a public hearing, have a full public hearing on it, and then work session it as well. So there's time for people to weigh in.
Correct.
On these. Okay.
Yes, and it'll just get advertised the way a normal public hearing does, because it'll be printed as an LD. It doesn't currently have an LD number. It's technically not a printed bill at the moment. So it'll be advertised the way that all the other ones are. Great. And you'll see in the summary too, that I did include that language of, this is, you know, the committee has not taken a position on the substance of the bill. It's going to come back and have a public hearing, et cetera.
Anyone have any questions right off? Oh. All right. What would you guess the turnaround will be?
That's a good question. I think at the earliest, this would, I think at the earliest you'd be able to schedule it for a hearing the first week of March. I think it might be likely that it might be the following week. Just
okay,
because, you know, there's a few steps in the process. But it is currently being processed by the revisor's office, so that is already, it's underway.
Thank you.
But, you know, referencing, et cetera.
Representative Dodge?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And can you remind me about how that prediction intersects with our dates for committee work and special permissions? Could you help clarify that, please?
So the deadline that's been set by the presiding officers is that the 100% voted deadline is March 13th. Beyond that, you will need to ask for permission from the presiding officers to have a meeting on, there are a couple exceptions, but like, I think it's anything other than like budget stuff or language review or whatever. So we need permission after March 13th.
Anyone else? All right, so I'm gonna just put it tentative. Representative Brennan?
Thank you, Senator Rafferty. And I know, Ms. Roy, you've already said this, and just going to ask you to say it again. But I know this is a draft, and we can change it around, do all the things we want to. But
Yep.
just for example, the language around that are eligible for free or reduced price meals, quote, percentages. We use a number of other databases other than just free and reduced meals to identify those disadvantaged students. And so I guess we can take care of that at a work session or some other point.
Yes, if you wanted to change that, it can be changed, yes, at the work session.
Okay. And I'm just missing it because I'm trying to read it quickly, but it talks about the economically disadvantaged students, about the moving from the 0.15 to 3.5. We also talked about there's also a correlation between the mill rate effort and a reduction in the mill rate effort based on the percentage of poverty within a particular district. Is that language in here somewhere?
Yes, it is. So the section on the front related, the page 1 related to economically disadvantaged students is so one of MEPRI's recommendations was to introduce like variability in the weight that an economically disadvantaged student gets. That's just that. The part that you're referring to, like to use the rate of economically disadvantaged students as a poverty indicator in a school's ability to pay, is in here. I have to find it. It is on page 4. It's that subsection 3A. So this is the statute related to like how the local share gets calculated. Currently, it's just the property fiscal capacity. It is adding in that indicator using the percentage of resident students that are identified as economically disadvantaged under section 156.75. And I think one of the questions that the committee will have to think about is, so this is the like 90-10, 50-50, 75-25. That is one of the questions that you'll just have to consider, is what exactly, how much weight you want to put on that economic disadvantage factor.
But as written, it's at 90-10.
It actually, it doesn't specify. It just says
okay.
it has to be adjusted by that rate.
Okay. And just one quick follow-up. We had also discussion about the special education recommendations.
Yep.
And I'm assuming that what you have in here, I don't fully understand the implications or whatever, because we haven't, I think, heard from MEPRI yet. But the special education things reflect the transitional recommendations that
Yes.
they had in their report.
Correct.
Correct. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And at some point, we will hear from MEPRI a little bit more about the implications of those changes.
About the special ed stuff? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else, please? Representative Mitchell.
Thank you. Just to follow up on that, the 90-10 is what is, it's not in here, but that's what would be discussed. And then 75-25, 50-50 were being studied. And will we find out about that? Report back about what that is?
I could certainly follow up and see if there is a anticipated time to complete that. But I would imagine, I think the department is aware that you will be considering this at a public hearing and work session in the next couple weeks.
Perfect.
So,
yep.
But yes, happy to follow up. Consider this a follow-up.
Anyone else? I am not seeing anyone. So, thank you.
Thank you. Feel free to reach out with questions about this. I know it's kind of a lot to take in like 10 minutes. But again, you'll have more time in the next couple weeks when this comes back for a hearing.
Senator Rafferty?
Yes, sir.
I just want to follow up and say thank you very much. You did a really good job in capturing the discussion. And this is, a very important bill for us to be putting out for public hearing and public discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to members who weighed in on this quite a lot too.
Yes, they did. All right. Well, thank you very much. I believe that concludes our work for the day, and we will see hopefully everyone on